Welcome to the show that teaches you the things your parents and teachers are too afraid to, the Helios blog. Today, we have a debate on Christianity and Islam, and of course the RP. This is Mohammed Hijab on FreshandFit. Here we go.
The reason she's alone is because she's difficult.
Women are not accepting the bare minimum.
Women fuck men they respect.
All the women who say things like, I'm strong, independent, I don't need no man, like, y'all impress me.
Women just gaslight each other and say what they want to hear.
Cancelled him being the speaker, and then we got beaten up basically because there was hundreds of them. They rushed us, which means they came and they tried to beat us up. The videos are online. I don't know if you've seen them.
Physically?
Yeah, beat us physically. Yeah, it wouldn't be any other way. I mean, there was maybe 30 assailants or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So, what happened is, after that, my school contract got cancelled, so I couldn't work as a school teacher anymore. So I realized that for me as a Muslim that has these views in the West and the United Kingdom, it's either censorship or it's not just censorship from a social media platform, which is something we're afraid of. And we were speaking to Sneaker. Obviously, he's been afraid. He's been censored and blocked off YouTube and stuff like that. But it's also the fact that you get fired from jobs, you get managed out of things. You can't be free. You cannot be free as a conservative, if you like, traditionalist Muslim. So these are some of the things that I suffered like growing up and stuff.
If you're traditional at all in 2024 in the West, that's the case.
Like that in this country. And so I had to make my living as a content creator. It wasn't actually my ambition. I wanted to do some kind of work and at the same time, I'm trying to say, do content creation. But it just so happened that everything forced me towards this. Because it's not just that I became unemployed, but it became unemployable when I had certain views. Like, for example, the views of LGBT. For Muslims, just like Orthodox Jews and many Christians, we don't believe that homosexuality is an acceptable morality, for example. So having that view is unacceptable to the majority of society in the West, especially in London. So it's forced me into this corner, I would say.
Wow.
What?
Because we've been told, especially in the UK, there's no free speech at all. And
Indeed.
from
Yeah.
the laws as well, whatever you say can be used against you, but work-wise or, for example, even in regular-wise.
Yeah, you guys are fairly restricted in your ability to speak and convey your ideas.
Yeah.
Have you been to the United States before? I'm assuming you probably have.
I've been to the United States 4 times, been to Canada like 5 times. I would say, look, it's on a legislative level. It's true that in the United States of America, there are a broader legal allowances in terms of what you can say because you don't have the equivalent of hate speech legislation. And things like defamation of character, libel, and stuff like that is much easier to prove in the United Kingdom than it is in the United States. So I think you're right to say that in the United States, there's definitely more freedom of speech embedded both in constitutional law and institutions generally. But when we speak about freedom of speech, it's not just, I think it's a mistake to think that freedom of speech is something that it's only a governmental reality. Like, in other words, so long as there's laws that allow or prohibit freedom of speech, that freedom of speech is present or absent in a particular society. Because the assumption there is that government is in control of all things that happen in a society. Well, it's not the case. You've got government that controls part of society, but also you've got, for example, institutions. Elon Musk, as an example, is a very, influential person, and therefore his platform could be said to be in many ways more powerful than some governmental institutions. So if he decides to take people off and on his platform, that's an implementation of freedom of speech or lack thereof on a platform. Likewise, YouTube. Yeah. And a lot of these companies are US-based companies. So the point is that freedom of speech it shouldn't just be thought of as, okay, if it's in law, then it's present in society. If it's not in law, then it's not present in society, because you have all these institutions and companies. And one could even make a democratic argument against people like Elon Musk, because he's almost yielding the power of a representative, for example, parliamentarian or member of Congress, without being voted in.
Agreed.
So
okay.
this is an issue here because you have people that have power, the power of politicians that have not been voted in. So this is a threat to
More,
democracy in many
actually.
ways.
Good point.
But these are complex discussions. But the point is that what I wanted to bring to the table was that the absence or the presence of freedom of speech is not just contingent on constitutional law, statute law, or otherwise. It can also be the institutions and the players, the main players of said institutions. And so maybe there should be a discussion about whether or not certain main players need to have some kind of a check from the people if it's a democratic mandate that people are looking for. So Elon Musk, or let's say whoever it is that owns YouTube, or Mark Zuckerberg, or whoever it may be, you know, as I say, I reckon that they have more influence than the majority of politicians.
Agreed.
Yet they're not elected.
That's a good point.
That I
actually.
never really thought about. That's pretty profound because if you really think about it, these people control platforms that actually have the reach and the ability to utilize this free speech that we talk about. But what do? I mean, you know,
They
thank God for
censor
Elon
it.
Musk, right? He brought a bunch of people back. He made X. Obviously, X still has its terms and conditions and everything else like that, but it's way more open than other platforms. But you're right, man. Like Zuckerberg over at Facebook, Adam Massari over at Instagram, all these guys, like they have more power than politicians do because they're able to regulate speech on their platforms, which in turn obviously is the vehicle from which you're going to use to get your message out there. And if they don't like what you got to say, then, you know, unfortunately you get canceled.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it is their platform, so understandable. But when it comes to free speech, you're right. There really isn't any free speech because
There's not.
governments don't control everything. They control a small portion, but these companies do control a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good point.
That's what it is, you know. So
I had a question,
okay.
if you don't mind, Hijab. What do you think about Christianity and atheism separately?
So we'll take one at a time. Obviously, like with Christianity, as Muslims, we believe in Christ. We believe that Christ is the Messiah. We believe that he's a prophet. We believe that he was sent by God. That we believe that he was given one.
Yeah, so that's the difference between Christianity and Islam. One of the major differences is that they don't believe that Jesus is God. They believe that Jesus is a prophet like Muhammad. So they don't believe in the Holy Trinity.
Wonders and miracles and signs, as it's mentioned in the book of Acts in the Bible. You know, in the book, he was a man amongst men that was sent with wonders and miracles and signs that God did through him. That's a biblical verse. And that biblical verse there in the book of Acts is everything we agree with, that God did those things through him. So we believe that, you know, Christ cured the leper, that he cured the blind with God's permission. But here's the difference between Islam and Christianity. So whereas we would say as Muslims that Christ was, yes, he was the Messiah, he was one of the greatest people who ever graced this earth. We consider anybody who rejects Christ not to be a Muslim. So this is something which excommunicates you from the religion of Islam. If someone attacks Christ, we would consider them to be a disbeliever of Islam. You cannot be a Muslim and reject or attack or besmirch Jesus Christ. It's impossible. Likewise, you cannot be a Muslim and attack or abuse or besmirch Mary, son of Mary, which is the mother of Christ. Those two figures are mentioned in the Quran. In fact, Allah mentions that Mary is the best woman on the earth. وَاصْطَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ, that he has chosen you above all women on the earth, even more so than any of the prophets' wives or any of the prophets' daughters or anybody else. So Mary for us is the most important woman to have ever lived. There's a whole chapter in the Quran, chapter 19, which is the chapter of Mary, which recounts some of the stories there relating to Mary. So we don't believe Jesus is God or the Son of God. That's the main difference. We do not believe that Jesus can be God. We do not believe that it's conceivable, it's intelligible, or that it's possible that anybody with a date of birth is God. Let me say that again. We do not believe that it's possible, that it's conceivable or intelligible that anybody with a date of birth is God, because God is the eternal. Jesus is not the eternal, at least the physical manifestation of him. He was born of a certain time. He had a mother. You know, in the Quran it says, كَانَا يَأْكُلَانِ الطَّعَامِ, that him and his mother used to eat food, which indicates limitation, because if you're eating food, how can you be God? So the point is that we believe that Jesus never even claimed to be God.
Again, fundamental difference between Islam and Christianity is this. They actually disagree on basically one of the fundamental tenets, one of the like most important pieces of Christianity, which is that Jesus is God. There's the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. There's the Trinity, right? So
there is no good evidence that Jesus claimed to be God. There's scanty evidence in the Bible, and the Bible itself is an unpreserved text, we consider to be. So it's a corrupted text. So our views on Christianity is as follows. We agree that Christ and Mary are great figures, but we think that history has distorted the image of Christ and Mary, and this idea of the Trinity was a historical development. That what happened was, in the Roman Empire, when Constantine adopted Christianity, because what happened in the beginning was the Christians were a persecuted minority. Then what happened was, in the year 313, there was the Edict of Milan, and Constantine, who was the then emperor of the Roman Empire, he embraced Christianity. He had a dream and so on, and then he embraced Christianity, and then he spread Christianity throughout the Roman Empire. That's how Christianity spread. When Christianity spread, the Roman Empire already had mythologies that were adopted from ancient Greek mythologies, like Mithraism, for example. You can check out Mithraism online. And most of these mythologies...
Well, anyway, Roman mythology was based on Greek mythology. They had a few gods that were their own. 90% were just Greek transplants.
Consisted of a godhead of some sorts. Father, son, this kind of relationship. And so it's easy to see that in the Roman Empire, how Christianity evolved due to the adoption, amalgamation, and synthesis of these ideas, which were otherwise, you could say, pantheistic, polytheistic ideas, mythological ideas, into the canon of Christianity. And that is even evidenced by some of the what you call early church fathers. So you have someone called Justin Martyr, and he's in his works, he's discussing in primary source materials, he's saying that just as you guys believe in Jupiter and the sun, we also believe in the Father and the Son. So in other words, he's trying to make close the proximity between pagan belief and Christian belief. So it's clear that the idea of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit was something which was adopted by the Romans. That's why the early Christians, for example, the Ebionites, didn't believe in this. And the idea of the Trinity is clearly developed such that the Holy Spirit joined the party as co-equal, co-eternal, only in the late 4th century, according to J. and D. Kelly in his book, Early Church Fathers. So you can see that there was a binitarianism, and then that transformed into a Trinitarianism. Now what we're saying is that this whole idea of God, this is not something God sent. It's not something that you even find in the Old Testament. Abraham didn't believe in the Trinity. That's what the Quran states. It says, "Ma kana Ibrahimu Yahudiyan wala Nasraniyan," that Abraham wasn't a Jew or a Christian. He believed, he was submissive to one God. That's what he was. He didn't believe Muhammad. We don't say that he did. He was the prophet of the time. So
Right.
Abraham didn't believe in the Trinity. We don't believe there's any evidence. There's scanty to no or zero evidence. So this is the point. Islam separates itself from Christianity.
Again, these are theological arguments, right? And with regards to, modern people having their books, I mean, we can argue that from a historical perspective, how all religions appeared, right? Islam itself being an offshoot of Christianity. So it's funny that the shoe is on the other foot.
In so much it says that we don't believe that Jesus was God. It cannot be possible or fathomable, plausible, intelligible, conceivable that a man who is limited is God who is unlimited. A man with a beginning is God which does not have a beginning, and so on. That's the main difference.
So just to respond, I get what you're saying, and I've family as a Christian, Muslim as well, so I do understand both sides of the religion on some level. But let me ask you this: so, in that regard, if Jesus isn't God as you say, what about the Bible? Should we follow the Bible as well as the Word of God, or no?
You see, that's a great question, because here's what we believe. And it's not just we, the Muslims, believe it. Yes, we, the Muslims, believe it, but this is now consensus in Christian scholarship. The idea that the Bible itself now has become corrupted, which means that there have been things that have been put into it and things have been taken out of it, which is why you have contradictory versions of the Bible. You have the New International Version, the King James Version, the Revised Standard Version. All of them have contradictory information. They're not all the same because they depend on different...
Yeah, the argument, basically, there are only really two major branches of Christianity, with everything else being a sect, like a offshoot, like a piece that's using Christianity for its own aims. So there's really only Catholic and Orthodox, the two original pieces of the Christian religion. The other pieces are offshoots that exist for historical reasons. And the reason why they're contradictory is because they're contradictory. They have their own goals which aren't... They have their own goals which aren't the goals of the original, obviously, Christian religion. So, there you go.
Manuscripts. And you can refer to the works of Bruce Mesker, who wrote a book on the corruption of the Bible. He was a Christian himself. So it's not actually controversial in the 21st century to state that the Bible, both the Old and New Testaments, have been corrupted thoroughly. They have been ravaged with corruption. They are deplete with they have corruption in every chapter, in fact. And so we, as Muslims, the relationship we have with the Bible is, we would say there's some truth in it, but some falsehood inside of it. And for us to discern what's the truth, we go to the Quran, because we believe it's the final revelation. You see, it's the final revelation which distinguishes and sieves out and filters out the truth from the falsehood. And so our relationship with the Bible is, we would say, as any historian would, frankly, that some parts of it are veracious and are acceptable, and other parts of it are interpolations, corruptions, and false, frankly.
So I can't argue that the Bible wasn't changed, because things have been changed over a period of time. I'm not gonna lie to you there. But back in the day, let's say Moses himself, did he have the Quran?
Pardon?
Moses.
Yes.
Back in the day, did he have the Quran?
So Moses, we believe that Moses was sent the Torah, and that's the same thing as what the Jews believe. So the Torah was sent to Moses. The Torah is the Torah. Now, Christians have a book called the Old Testament. Jews have the same book, but they call it the Hebrew Old Testament. The first 5 books of that book is what Jews refer to as the Torah, beginning from Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, and so on. Now, we would say about this is that this is not actually the Torah. These 5 books are not actually the Torah. But you can see this, number one, in the fact that there's no chain of narration which links Moses to these 5 books. Number two, that if you see the first manuscripts that we have of the Old Testament in general, they're about 1,000 years after Moses, frankly. They're 1,000 years after Moses. So there's no connection between, for example, the Dead Sea Scrolls or this or whatever it may be, and Moses in a direct way. The second thing is that we believe that there was an original book sent to Moses, and that book was corrupted. But the corruption that we have now of the first 5 books is not necessarily the Torah that Moses was originally sent, but there may be remnants of it which are. So once again, as a historian, you'd look into it. Now, historians say, for instance, there's something called documentary hypothesis. Documentary hypothesis is the idea that there's so many different authors of the Bible. This is the dominant school of thought now in secular history, that there have been so many different kinds of authors of the Bible. They all bring different things to the Bible, and it is what it is. We would say there are some things in the Bible which are true. I mean, if you open the Bible, with all due respect, the first page the first page of the Bible has contradictions inside of it. The first page. For example, it says in the beginning God created the night and the day, and on the first day God created the night and the day. But on the fourth day, according to Genesis 1, on the fourth day God created the sun. But how can you have night and day without the sun? On the third day God created the vegetation, like the plantation, the shrubbery. But how can you have plants and vegetation without the sun? In Genesis chapter 2 verse 5, which is the second page of the Bible, it said that no plant has sprung up yet. So I thought in Genesis chapter 1 it said that on the third day God created the plants, but then in Genesis chapter 2 verse 5 it says there's no plants. So are there plants or no plants? So there's internal contradictions, there's external contradictions. I mean, that's why most of the
I've no comment. Like, I'm already confused. To be honest, like doing a what's it called? If you do a thorough reading of these texts, I'm sure you can find many contradictions, considering they're not perfectly written. Anyway, no comment as to this.
People of today in the 21st century have resorted to what you call metaphorizing the biblical text. So they're spiritualizing it. They're saying this is not what it's meant to be. It's just a metaphor. That's why there's so many contradictions inside of it. And this was not the dominant idea back in the days. There's only really the Alexandrian school, who are like Origin of Alexandria and others, that used to do that. But apart from that, no bona fide church father used to do that, frankly. Apart from the Alexandria school. So in other words, people have resorted, to metaphorizing the Bible because of the contradictions inside of it. And they can't solve those contradictions. And so what we would say is that a true book from God cannot have contradictions. That's why the Quran says,
there's no contradictions in the Quran.
You would have found in it many contradictions. لَوَجِدُ فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. You would have found in it many contradictions. And that's the challenge that we put to humanity. That if the Quran is truly from other than God, then why are there no contradictions inside of it? And so this is one of the many challenges that we put to humanity.
Good.
Okay. Thanks for your explanation. I think it was really good. I just questioned it because in my belief, I think this was God and is God. And at the same time, how do you dictate what's real and not in the Bible? Like for example, and you said it was changed numerous times. But how do you dictate what's real and what's not real, in your sense? Because I've seen many times in the Bible where he says, I am God in different ways. But in your stance, you're saying it's not true because things have changed over the years, but how do you know what's real and what's not in the Bible?
So what is God? Let me ask you this. What is God?
The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. The one that guides us through our daily life.
Do you define God as the all-powerful, the all-knowing? Do you define God in those terms, like the beginning, no end? Do you define God as the one who's all powerful, the creator of the universe?
Yes.
Okay. So when you pray to God, you are praying to the creator of the universe.
Yes.
All right. So if you're praying to the creator of the universe and the one who's all powerful, the one who's without limitation, the one who is all knowing, and so on, there are many things about Jesus which make him impossible to be God. For example, if he's a human being, he is limited in knowledge. And in fact, if you look at the book of Mark chapter 13, I think verse 34, you'll find that he went to the tree and he didn't know if it was in season. He didn't know when the hour was going to be, for example. He said no one knows when the hour is going to be except for the Father. So if Jesus is God, how comes he's lacking in knowledge when we've already defined God as being...
Because that's his human body with human limitations. I don't understand. How is that not possible? It is possible. I fail to see how this is a contradiction.
All knowledgeable. What would you say to that?
Okay, so as God being all-knowing and being the Father, right? Let's say Jesus is his son, right? Maybe as a father, you don't tell your son everything that you want him to know up front. Maybe
but the son is meant to be all-knowing, because Jesus is meant to be all-knowing. Okay, The Holy Spirit is meant to be God because the Trinity says the Father is God, the Son is God, the Holy Spirit is God. If no one, according to the Bible, it says no one knows the hour except for the Father. Okay. So does the Holy Spirit know the hour according to the Bible?
I've not seen a verse saying that, but I would assume yes.
No. The verse says the opposite of that. So the verse says that no one knows the hour except for the Father, right? Which means that the Holy Spirit is precluded, is not included in that. So if that's the case, if the Holy Spirit is meant to be God, and the Holy Spirit and being God means knowing everything, then there's a contradiction there. Do you see the point?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So a contradiction is meant to be false. It's wrong. So if you're speaking to, for example, you know, when you speak to your guests, some of the on intersexual dynamics or whatever, and then one of them says, you know, if one of those women come, you know, one of those escorts, or sorry to say, well, I don't know what they are. If one of them, I don't know what they are, but let's say one of those escorts come and say, what do you consider yourself? You say to her, what do you consider yourself? So you say, okay, you know, she's a 6. She says, I'm a 7 out of 10. And then 2 minutes later, she says, I'm a 6 out of 10. And then 2 minutes later, she goes, I'm a 1 out of 10. You're going to say this is a grand contradiction. Either that or you're confused. So if Jesus, is meant to be God, he has to be all-knowing. If the Holy Spirit is meant to be God, he has to be all-knowing. But he can't be all-knowing and not know when the hour is, because then that precludes a part of very essential knowledge.
I actually don't know how Christian doctrine works on this. Like, who's supposed to know what and so on. I don't actually know that. So I can't really debate this. I would need to really research this topic to actually know, to be able to have this theological debate. Because right now this guy is like, you know, he's got lots of knowledge and he's got lots of knowledge and he's using that knowledge to like walk all over the guys that don't know anything. But again, is that really a debate, or is that just one person having done the research and another not having done so? That's the impression that I get, rather than it being a debate in good faith. Okay, pun intended, I guess. Anyway, let's end the video there. Hit the like, hit the sub, hit all the notifications, drop me a donation, or buy my books like Hunter M, Adrian R, Tom and Bobby, Dylan, Renaissance Press, Brian, Andrew, Alan, Armani, and Nicholas. Shout out to you, most recent purchaser of both my books, Strategist Guide to Seduction and Quotes to Live By. Thank you. If you'd like coaching services, I do offer them at my email there. It's theheliosblog@gmail.com. And I do offer early access content on my Patreon. Thank you so much for listening, guys, especially if you listen to the end. I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. And I'll see you next time.